everyone, welcome back to another episode of Curious About Kakuro. Um, this week we've stepped it up a notch. We're no longer working on the easy 9x11 puzzles. We're taking it up a step to the intermediate level, so there'll be a little bit more difficulty. But what I want to do is that we'll just push through with the examples that we've showed you in the previous videos. And I wanted to concentrate basically today of trying to think on two ends of the scale of working out, what it can be, but also what it can't be. And that way then it saves you having to put the numbers in. And if we come across any other new tips or new tricks that I can show you, I'll show them as we get to. But the idea is just to sort of start and try and solve these, and let's go through using the basics to get numbers in for a start. And once we get numbers in, we can eliminate numbers and see if other things unfold as they go. Because as you know, that eventually you keep going backwards and forwards. These things will work themselves out because there is only one way that they can be solved. So, okay, let's start here straight off the bat across the top. Two numbers adding up to 8 is going to give us quite a few options, but vertically, we're looking for two numbers adding up to 5. So we know that can only be 1, 2, 3, and 4. This can only be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now going back, because this is 8, we know it can't be 4. Otherwise it'd be 4 and 4. So can't be 4. That cannot be 1. Okay, so working from there then to get up to 8, if that's 3, that can only be 5, 6, or 7. 11 is going to give us quite a few options down here, but again, vertically, we know that can only be a 1 or a 3. This can only be a 1 or a 3. And with the 6 that comes down here, we know that it can't be a 3. It can only be 1, 2, 4, or 5. This can only be a 1, 2, 4, and 5. Now then, we can now use these numbers to work out and see if we can eliminate some of these other ones. If this number in the right-hand box was a 1, then this number would have to be a 3. If that was the case, then we would only have two numbers adding up to 4. So when we take them out, we can't put a 12 in this box. So then I know that in this box here, we cannot have a 1. Also, I can't have a 2, because even if the 2 came up against the 1 or the 3, the maximum it could be would be 5, which would still mean 11 would have to go into this box. So we know it can't be. So I can eliminate that 2. Okay, so let's work on here then. If it was a 4 and a 1, it would be 5 and it would still be too big. But a 4 and a 3 is a 7. That would mean that a 9 could go in there. So a 4 can fit in there. If it's a 5 and a 1, that's 6. It still can't go in there. If it's a 5 and a 3, then that is 8, and that would have to be an 8, so it can go in there. Another way of looking at it is here. If this was the 1, that would then mean that two of these numbers would have to add up to 15. No matter what happens, you can't get 5 and 10 or 4 and 11 to add up to 15. So I know that 1 there is out of place. That has to be the 3, and this is the 1. Okay, we can go back a step here, knowing then that this cannot be a 5, because this can't be a 1. If that can't be 1, this can't be 5. So we're now eliminating that from 4 to the 2. 2 and 1 is 3, meaning this has got to be 8. 3 and 4 is 7, which means that this has to be 9. 8 and 9 is 17, which means that this has to be 3. Okay, now let's look here, 7, 12. With this being a 4 numbers adding up to 12, they've obviously got to be low numbers. 6 is the highest number that can go in there. And if one of those numbers was a 6, then the remaining numbers would have to be 1, 2, and 3. The next number down, if these numbers was a 5, then it would have to be 1, 2, and 4 in there. So I know that once I've got a 3 established, a 5 cannot go into there. Another way of looking at it is that, if it was then 5 and 3 is 8, which leaves 4, which would have to be 1 and 3 to make 4. We've got a 3, so I know a 5 cannot go in there. So the only numbers that can go in there is that 6 will be one of them, or we'll look down, but we'll work out and eliminate other numbers as we get to it. 14 can only be 5, 6, 8, 9. This can only be 5, 6, 8, 9. But knowing that the numbers adding up to 8, it cannot be 9, it cannot be 8, and it can't be 6 because you can't have 6, 1, 1. So the only number in there is 5, which means this has to be 9. Because it's 5 and we need 3 remaining, that can only be 1 or 2. This can only be 1 or 2. Okay, because this is 7, this can only be a 5 or a 6. Okay, so let's have a look at this now. 17 we know can only be 8 or 9. This can only be 8 or 9, meaning this can only be 1 or 2. Quite a few numbers here. 12. Here we've got 3 numbers adding up to 7, which we know can only be 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2 can't go in there, so that has to be 4. These can only be 1 or 2. This can only be 1 or 2. Because it's 4, that has to be 8, meaning this can only be 6 or 7. 11, it's the second lowest 4-number run. If it was 1, 2, 3, 4, that would make 10. We're after 11, so it can only be 1, 2, 3, 5. So we can eliminate some of the numbers in here. We know it can't be 1, 2, so it can only be 3, 5. We know here it can be 1 and 3, so it obviously can't be 2 or 5. This can only be 1 or 3. So let's go back here now, knowing that this can be 1, 2, 3, 5. This can be 1, 2, 3, 5. Let's carry on. 45 in all of the numbers there. So that's every digit from 1 to 9 in that way. Yeah, every number possible goes in that square somewhere. We know that in here it can only be 1, 2, 3, or 4. Here it can only be 1, 2, 3, or 4. We can eliminate them, and let's do it as we get to them. 10, so we know here can be 1, 2, 3, 4. This can't be 1, so it's 2, 3, 4. This can be 1, 2, 3, 4. This 1, 2, 3, 4. Vertical, this can only be 1, 2, 3, 4. If that's a 4, that can only be then 7, 8, or 9. Let's carry on. 6 can only be 1, 2, 4, 5. This can only be 1, 2, 4, 5. 8, 4 can only be 1, 3. Can only be 1, 3. 27. I know that in this block of 4 numbers, the lowest possible number that can go in there will be a 3, because that would mean that the 3 boxes left with the highest numbers we can get is 7, 8, 9, which adds up to 24. We're going to need at least a 3 to go in there. So no point putting in the 1s or the 2s in there, they can't go in. Here we've got 16, which can be 7 or 9. This has to be the 7. It can't be 9 because you can't have 9, 1, 1. So 7 is in there. That has to be 9. Any 9s we can eliminate, and no, it's not there. 7 plus 3 is 10, which we know can only be 1 or 2. I can get rid of that 3. So it has to be 1 and 2. Because that's 1, that has to be the 3, which means that cannot be 3. I can eliminate it. Okay, 27, 17, 10 we know has got to be 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got the 2, so we're looking at 1, 3, 4. This has to be the 1, because it can only be 1 or 2. This has to be the 2. 2 means that this has to be 7. 1 means that cannot be 1. This can only be 3 or 4. I've already got the 3, so it has to be 4. And 4 means this has to be 3. 7 and 3 is 10, meaning that that has to be 4. Because I've got 3 and 4 in here, that cannot be 4. I've basically got 1, 2, 3, 4 in here. Okay, so let's take a step back here. Now we've established 4. If we subtract 4 from 27, that leaves us 23. So I know that then in those numbers it can only be 6, 8, and 9. We can put them in. 6, 8, 9. 6, 8, 9. 6, 8, 9. We can do a back step here. We know that if these numbers add up to 10, it can't be 9 and it can't be 8. because you can't have 8, 1, 1. So it's got to be 6 and 4, which is 1 and 3. This has to be 1 and 3. This is 7, which I know is 1, 2, and 4. So 3 can't go in there. It has to be the 1. That's got to be the 3. On this line, this cannot be 6. This cannot be 6. Let's have a look in here. I've now got a matching pair, 8, 9, so I know that no other numbers on that line can be 8 or 9. Here I've got two numbers adding up to 16. I know it can't be 8. That has to be the 9, and that is the 7. So because this is 9, this has to be 8. That eliminates this 8. That has to be 9, and this is 8, making this the 2. Okay, let's go back down here. Now, because this is 7, this has to be the 1, which means this cannot be 1. This cannot be 1. And because we're looking, 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 6, 3, 7, we know that this has to be 1, 2, 4. So 2 can't go in there. That has to be 4. So that is the 2, making this the 5. And 4 and 9 makes that 13. 9 and 5 is 14, and 3 is 17. So we've basically got the bottom of this puzzle sorted out. Vertical, let's see if we've got any other clues that can go in here now. We've got a 3 and a 5 sorted. So if that's a 5, that has to be 7. If it's a 3, it has to be 9 to go in there. 17, 2, 3. So we've got 5. If we take 5 from 12, then we know that it has to be 7 remainder. So it can't be 7 and 0. It can be 6 and 1. So let's put that in. 6 and 1. We know that it can't be 5 and 2 because we've got a 2. We know it can't be 4 because we need a 3. It can't be 3 because we've got 1. We know it can't be 2. It can only be 1 and 6. That is the only options that will go in there. So what that means now is that we can take the 1 from the 7, which leaves 16. That can only be 7 and 9. Because this is 7, this has to be the 1. Because this is 1, this has to be the 4. Okay, so 9 and 7 makes up the 16, so it can't be 3. It can only be 1, 2, 4, so this can only be 1 and 2. Okay, let's see if we can work out what any of these numbers are here now, adding up to the 40. We've got 6, 8, 9, which is 23. This is 24. So we're going to need 3 numbers that will add up to 16. Let's see if there's any other easier ones in here. 9 and 7 is 16. That's 24, 34. That's 15 adding up to here. So if it's 15, there has to be 14. It can't be. Now, okay, so that cannot be a 1. That has to be a 2. If that has to be a 2, this can't be a 2. This cannot be a 9. This cannot be a 2. So we're now looking at 3, 4 as a matching pair. This cannot be 2. If that can't be 2, that cannot be 3. So with a matching pair 3, 4, this has to be the 1, which means that this has to be the 4. Okay, now let's work out the numbers that can go in here now. We've got 4, 3, 7, 9, 16, that's 18, 26, so we're looking at 13, which has to be 6 or 7. Okay, 45 is all the numbers, 71 is 862, 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got that, 3, 4, 5, 45 we know is all the numbers, 11, 5, and 6. Okay, so 6, 8, 9, 23, 24, 34, 16, 15, 14. Okay, I know that cannot be a 2. Because if it's a 2, what's left is 14, and that will not go in there, so we can get rid of the 2. I've now got another matching pair here with the 3 and 5, so that can't be the 3, that has to be the 1. That can't be 3, 5 or 1, so that has to be the 2. Because that is 1, that's got to be the 3. Okay, 5, 7, 3, 9, 3, 5, 3, 4. So we've got to work out what these three numbers are now. 6, 8, 9, 23, 24, 34, 16. So if that was a 3, that has to be the 5, which is 8, and 8 is, that cannot be the 3, that has to be the 4. Being the 4, that's got to be the 3. 3 means that that has to be 8. Okay, so now we can work these out. 8 and 1 is 9, 9 and 4 is 13. That's 23, 22, 28. Two numbers adding up to 12 is either 3 or 9 or 5 and 7. It can only be 7 and 5. 5 means this is 3. 3 means that this is 9. Because we have a 7 established, that's got to be 6. This has to be 7. 7 means 1 to make 8. 1 means 2 to make up the 4 vertically. Okay, so we're only missing 2 numbers now out of the whole lot of digits. We need a 1. We've got 2, 3, 4. We need a 5. And we've got 6, 7, 8, 9. So this can only be a 1 or a 5. So let's see if that adds up to anything here. 1, 2. We've got a 2, so this has to be the 1. 1 means that this has to be the 2. The 2 means that this has to be the 1. 1 means that this has to be the 6. So we can't have the 1 here. That has to be the 5. This cannot be 1, 2, or 5. So it's got to be the 4. 4 means that that has to be the 2 to make 6. Because this is 5, this has to be 1. 1 and 2 is 3, meaning this has to be the 8. And this has to be the 3 to make 11. And that you will find is all the numbers filled in. Let's check and see if we are right. Check the numbers. Yes, we've solved that in 17 minutes 45 seconds. We haven't put in there anything much new, but I've just shown you that how quickly you can look at what it can be, what it can't be. Don't bother putting in what it can be. You will always, every time you scan up and down, you will spot something that will either go in or won't go in. So you can either add or eliminate, and each time it will get you a little bit nearer to the puzzle. Next time I will go through pretty much the same thing, and I also want to bring up another couple of charts that will show you some of the other number runs that you can work out then again. Not so much what the numbers can be, but what numbers can't be, which will help you to narrow down the scope of what can go in. Thanks for watching, and keep having a go at these and trying them yourself. The more you play with them, the more that you will learn, and the easier and easier that they become. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.